So for those of you, well, first of all, thank you for inviting me, and it's a pleasure to be here. It's a pleasure to be here with the other speakers tonight, who I know and respect, and I'm happy to be here. So for those of you who don't know UNDP, I was once on a TV program where they were interviewing people in the street, and somebody said, "Oh yes," well, most people said, "Oh, I don't know what UNDP is." Most Kosovars that were interviewed. But one said, "Oh yes, I know what they are. They're a great American NGO." Well, just for the record, we're not an American NGO. We're a global UN development agency. We have three focuses: strengthening governance, economic inclusive growth, and environmental sustainability. We work in those three areas also in Kosovo. We're not a donor. We work with donors. We partner with donors. I'm going to talk a little bit about data, and I'm going to talk a little bit about people, because I think if you were to sum up sort of the philosophy of UNDP, we're interested in understanding the situation so that we can act and produce results, and the only way that you can act is by engaging with people. And of course, there's a lot of young people here to engage with. I know probably Levent, you'll talk a bit more about the statistics, but of course we all know the gravity of the situation, that we have a high level of unemployment. Latest labor force surveys show 60%, 15 to 24 years old unemployed. More women, of course, almost 70% of women versus men. So many of these, 35%, are not even in education, employment, or any kind of training. The figure for women, again, is 41% compared for 30% for men. And the actual employment rate amongst working age women is only 13% compared to about 40% for men. So it's not so great for men, but there's so much lost potential here by having such a low employment rate, both in terms of youth but also women in particular. We do a lot of work in UNDP on public opinion. So the latest public pulse report, which we do with USAID, shows public satisfaction with leaders, including the President, the Speaker, Prime Minister, central institutions, at levels not seen since 2007. For example, 70% report being either dissatisfied or very dissatisfied with the current political direction. 3/4 of Kosovars, 75%, believe that the most important problems in Kosovo are related to socioeconomic conditions, employment, and poverty being the top. We also, earlier last year, we did a survey where more than half the respondents said that one of their relatives had gone abroad in the past 6 months. And 85% of Kosovars in our last survey believe that family connections, bribes, party alliances, and other non-merit factors play a decisive role in public sector employment decisions. So yeah, if I was a young person in Kosovo, I would have a lot to be pessimistic about. But as UNDP, our job is to take whatever data we have, to take the lemons and see what kind of lemonade we can make with our partners. We have a very strong partnership with the Ministry of Trade and Industry, with the Ministry of Labor and Social Welfare. And what's really important for us is that, of course, in the light of this kind of sobering situation, there's a risk of inaction. And I think a lot of you have witnessed, the risks of inaction over the last little while, that really Kosovo can't afford not to have forward movement in terms of employment, in terms of economic growth, despite the political situation. We know, we're a relatively small organization, so the impact of our actions, we can probably sleep a little bit better at night knowing that it's a little less than some other international actors, but we know that decisions that are made about resources and where we place our attention have an impact on the economy, on the society, but we still have to act. We have to try and figure out good programmatic interventions that work, that can give young people the opportunity to learn new skills, to create their own employment opportunities, to not have to wait, but also we do work on helping to improve the policy and regulatory situation for trade, for employment. And we also increasingly have been working to encourage Kosovars living abroad to invest in employment generation for young people and others in Kosovo. What we try to do also is help, particularly to experiment, to continue to rely, we help to scale up workable solutions in terms of employment generation, but we also are open to the idea of experimentation, using small amounts of resources to try new and different ways. I mean, most recently we've been piloting with the Ministry of Labor and Social Welfare pilots on self-employment and also wage subsidies. So, and then we're seeing, does this work, does this not work? By not using so much of our donor money in experimentation, we can learn from failure. And this is really important. It's not something that I see a lot in Kosovo, which is the appetite or the willingness to say, whoa, we really screwed up here, and we're going to learn from this and we're going to do things different. But the truth of the matter is that we have to be able to acknowledge limits to success or failure, because failure is the only thing that helps us to learn, actually, in life. When we fail, we learn, but we shouldn't give up trying to innovate and to try new and better ways of doing things. Most recently, we've been working with UN volunteers, UNICEF, and some other agencies and partners. We spent part of the summer and into the fall talking with hundreds of young Kosovars from the north, the south, the east, the west, all sorts of different income brackets in a participatory process. Human-centered design is what it's called. And what was interesting, the reason why we did it was we felt like we needed, again, more data. We needed to better understand from young people's perspective, what is it that they care about, and what is it that we could get behind as the UN and support in terms of their own goals and objectives. And they came up with three things. One is that they want to get engaged in improving the quality of education, even if that means outside of the classroom, because they know that education reform is going to take a long time, but they don't want to wait. So informal education, other ways of engaging and improving learning for themselves and other young people. They were concerned about the school-to-work transition, which I think should be no surprise that this is a huge challenge, because either they're coming out of high school or they're coming out of university and they still don't have the skills that match what the employment opportunities are in different either trade or other oriented activities, economic activities, and in the meantime, they want to be more engaged in all sorts of different ways of improving the quality of life for themselves and for others. So that means engagement in cultural issues, environmental issues, political issues, etc. And so now what we're trying to do is we're trying to sort of break all that down and figure out, okay, well, what can UNDP and what can UNICEF and some other partners do to support this? But I'll just end with a couple of comments. I mean, I'm willing and happy to talk about these different programs and the different things that we are doing. But for me, I think even as an organization that can do some pretty, we can do policy documents and we can do surveys and analysis and that sort of thing. But really what motivates me personally is the individual interaction with young people. I've met so many incredible young Kosovar women. Just to give you a couple little stories. Last spring I was traveling around Kosovo with my daughter, and we met a 21-year-old Gorani woman who told me that she'd been out of school for 7 years. And she told us, my daughter asked her, would you like to finish high school? She left school at 14, and she said, yes, of course, because this will make me more attractive to them in college. Why are they at university? And only one person actually was able to respond to my question. Most of them kind of looked and said, well, because my cousin's family is paying for it, or whatever, you know, in the sense that it was like they just felt like they needed to be in university because they finished high school and they didn't have anything else to do or whatever. There was one young woman who had a very clear idea where she wanted to go, and I think that that's a really big challenge as well in Kosovo. I don't know whether or not, not every group of kids that I talk to have that kind of lack of ambition or lack of vision, but I think it's really important, and it has to do with this idea of social engagement. Because when you're engaged socially and doing cultural activities or environmental or whatever it is, these are other opportunities to start to develop a passion and start to develop a vision of what your life could be like. And I get the sense that and I could talk, but I'm not going to take up more time because I want to listen to the other speakers. But there are a lot of good stories of hope that I've heard as well. And I think talking about success stories, talking about young women and men who've been able to develop, new skills, new opportunities for themselves and others is important, because I feel like when I have these conversations like the one that I had with these college students, it's almost like hope is a resource that we need to develop in Kosovo. We've got lots of lignite, lots of coal, we've got lots of other resources. We need to generate some more hope, and I think that for us, by working with young Kosovars, we can improve both the numbers but also sort of the perceptions around the opportunities in Kosovo, and inspire people by individual examples of success that will hopefully lead them to take that decision to not go abroad and to stay here and to continue to fight to develop a better Kosovo. So ultimately, why is that kind of attention to the individual important? Because at the end of the day, and I'm going to quote and end with this, it is individual behaviors and actions, and sometimes people forget this. They say, oh, but the politicians, or I can't, or they're all corrupt, or whatever. It's really down to us as individuals to create change, and then it trickles up, and then you engage with your family, your community, your institution, your society. But the individual is the atomic level, and that's why I care about individuals, and that's why I care about talking and learning from them. Margaret Mead, the anthropologist, said, and I'll end with this: never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed citizens can change the world. Indeed, it's the only thing that ever has. So thank you very much, and I'm looking forward to your questions and comments and hearing from the others.